Welcome to the Lawyer on Air podcast and this three-part series where Akiyo Inoko Hewett interviews Catherine and asks her all the questions you've been dying to know the answers to. Let's get into it.
So many female attorneys, myself included, look up to you as a role model. And I'm incredibly grateful that you are so open to everyone and always happy to help others. And I would like to ask questions to you on behalf of many attorneys at different stages in their careers who are interested in board roles either next year, 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. So I'd like to break down and get started with the youngest one. For college students or law students who are interested in the board role, what's your advice to them?
Well, I love that you're thinking about questions like this for younger people to consider board roles at different stages. But I'll be honest, it's perfectly natural not to know what board service entails when you're a law student or a college student. I certainly had no idea, didn't even cross my mind. And it's perfectly natural to know nothing. I had no one who could pull back the curtain. Maybe some people have got a family friend or a mother or father or someone in the family who's on a board, and perhaps those people open up. But generally speaking, you don't often hear about boards until much later. And until you get your experience, you don't really think about it as your career starter. So for people who are a bit miffed or finding it a little bit mysterious, it's totally natural. It wouldn't have crossed my mind as a college student to be thinking about this. But I would say for the early law students or the college students, build your curiosity and ask questions. If you meet somebody who is a board member, ask them. Ask professors, ask mentors, ask practicing lawyers. Don't shy away from asking a question. You'll never find out anything if you don't ask a question. So being curious and asking questions is really key. I'd join clubs and take leadership roles as much as possible. Even teeny tiny university roles in clubs and organizations, or they can really give you a taste for whether you really like to get into this kind of area. It's small scale, but those skills can transfer. Get comfortable with the financial things we mentioned before. Maybe some of those people are doing finance courses at university, but honing in on those is good. And also learning the basics of business, getting familiar with how businesses operate. It's really good to have an understanding of what a successful organization looks like. And maybe you can start doing a little bit of that at an early stage. I can say this from looking back, but I never knew it was something to do back then. But that might give some hints from me looking in the rear view.
Great advice. For junior level associates with 1 to 3 years of experience who are probably working hard, long hours, learning how to be a good lawyer, building their legal skills in a law firm or in a company, big or small, what's your advice to them?
Yeah, we'll do that. Focus on building your legal expertise, your excellence, mastering your core skills. Your early career is so full of focusing on that. And it might feel like you're in the middle of everything, but that's certainly where you need to be focused. Build your legal skills, build your solid reputation as a really diligent and reliable lawyer. Be known for your excellence in your field and everything that you do, to be trusted and be given real responsibility. Being known as that lawyer is key at this time, right? 1 to 3 years experience. It will serve you so well later. Don't look too far ahead. Hone in on the skills right now. Start observing and looking and being curious about the business side of things as well. So you'll have lots of clients come into the law firm or the people who are in your business if you're an in-house lawyer. And you can find how they interact with their clients who are on boards. So lawyers in the team who are helping out other companies that have boards. Just looking at how they do those things, not only the legal aspects, but how they're dealing with things if it's a matter, a deal, asking questions perhaps to the deal lawyer about how they're handling things and just observing and being really curious. You've got a whole wealth of experience right there in front of you. So be involved and curious. Again, also building those relationships with mentors at that time is so important. I remember those relationships with committees and things that I were on at the time were also super important. I remember volunteering on the Sister City Committee, the Japan Festival Committee, and a local Japan society where I later became president. And those were places where I spent my volunteering of my time, but they taught me so much about how organizations run. So while I was a junior lawyer in my first 3 years, I was doing those sorts of things. So from my own personal experience, I can say getting involved in those committees and putting energy into the community is also a key aspect. Many lawyers are so engrossed in their first years of just doing law that they don't see the blinkers need to be widened a bit, and to be able to give your time to other community aspects sets you up well for later.
That's great advice. And also, I was a little bit bored when I was drafting a board resolution again for a selection of director of US subsidiary. Looking back, I was tired of repeated assignments, but now I have skills to draft those resolutions easily, and that's really helped me understand the governance. So I'm sure all the junior associates are probably on the same page, or
Yeah.
maybe they're drafting board resolutions now. But I think just having different perspective is really important.
Absolutely. You've hit a really great point. Drafting them might seem a little sterile and boring, but later on, those resolutions come to life when you see it involving in the boardroom, the discussion that ends up being that resolution that's drafted. So stick with it. Don't give up. It will be something that makes sense later.
For mid-level associates with 4 to 7 years of experience who might be studying abroad now or working at a company as secondment or government agency as secondment or move into in-house role with 4 to 7 years of experience, what's your advice to them?
4 to 7 years. Okay, you've hit on the point, secondments. So at this stage, you may have an opportunity for a secondment or an in-house rotation. I would just take advantage of them. Don't just deny them or turn them down because you're busy doing something else. They just so broaden your perspective. You get right inside a business and you can see how the corporate is structured. You can see how they're doing their decision making, and that is just gold to see something in action right in front of you. So also develop your cross-functional knowledge even more, right? Start getting those insights beyond simply the law and broadening it to the business side of things. Get involved in, risk management, operations, supply chain, sales, right? These are really going to be helpful for your board roles and bring you a sort of well-rounded approach. I would seek out board adjacent assignments. So maybe you're on in-house or on secondment, but volunteer for projects that interact with the board. As you just said, preparing notes, preparing board minutes, secretarial notes, understanding what boards are prioritizing, what they're making decisions on, the amount of finance that's involved. All those things demystifies the board service for you and makes it really more accessible. And the other thing would be to develop your leadership skills, really hone in on those. You're likely to be now supervising junior colleagues. And so focusing on your leadership style, being a good, strong leader, inspiring and guiding others is also a super effective way to take you through at that level of 4 to 7 years.
Thank you so much. Next is my generation. For attorneys with 7 to 10 years of experience, what's your advice to us?
Well, you're now really in a great position to be starting to position yourself more directly for a board role. Build that board ready profile. Over the years, you've been noting down the things that you've been doing, the leadership skills, etc. I've just mentioned. So start transitioning your CV, that's an executive CV that you would submit to a recruiter for your next in-house legal role or law firm role. try to think about how you would make that into a governance CV that we've been talking about all along. Consider that board training and certification. It's time to go and do that. It's critical to get a mentor or a coach to be helping you too. And that should be with someone who's a current board member. It might take a little while to find the right person, but if you have access to board members, ask them, would you mentor me? I'm really interested in these 5 questions. Could you help me understand that? Could you spend some time while I shout you a cup of coffee or something like that? Direct from advice from those people who are serving on boards is just magic, right? You've got it right there from the horse's mouth. So prepare that. But make sure, as I said before, with the giver's mindset that you're giving to these people who are giving their time to you. Start shaping your professional brand would be another thing. Who are you really wanting to be? Who do you want to stand for? What values do you want to stand for? Boards seek out people who are really recognized and know what they value and what value they can provide. Start publishing articles about what you want to focus on. Speak at conferences. Look for places where you can build your visibility. And again, continue to engage with your professional organizations. I think you do that a lot with your associations, with the Georgia Bar and other places. But, from your personal experience, work in those networks where they're most likely to hear your stories and understand who you are. And maybe they know someone who's looking for a board member, or they know someone who knows someone. But unless they see you visible and standing out in the crowd, you're probably going to be looked over. So those were the things I would say concentrating on now at your level would be really great to do.
Great advice. My theme for 2024 has been self-branding. And it's been amazing. And I think I see the progress and difference when I start posting more on LinkedIn or try to share what I did or what I'm going to do. And that has been incredible, more than what I imagined. So I will continue doing that. And thank you for your advice. For senior attorneys, in-house or in private practice with more than 10 years of experience, and they might be ready for a board role. So what's your advice to them? How can they start preparing for and applying for board roles?
I would say it's a drilling down on what I've really already said, focusing on that strategic and financial acumen side of things, really getting that board CV honed in. That's your meshi, your business card for anybody looking at you and assessing if you're even going to get through the gate. And most important is building that network, relationships, being strategic with intention, not going to every social occasion and telling everybody about what you want to do, being really careful within your professional network to show that you're interested in board positions, but connecting with the right people, connecting with executive recruiters, helping them with information about what you're doing in your in-house role or your law firm roles that will inform them to then be able to give you information about placements and boards. Focusing on connecting with people and showing that you're ready or ready to be ready is super important. I think for private practice lawyers, it's a little harder because they have so many different clients and different companies. They can often be conflicted out. So maybe consider doing what you've done, Akiyo, or doing what I've done and finding your own niche in your own practice, or narrowing down somehow who you're working with in the law firm. I know that's pretty hard, but in a law firm position with many, many clients, it can be harder to find a role. Maybe a smaller law firm with less clients may release some of that conflict of interest for you. Start thinking about board roles, building even deeper your financial literacy and governance skills, and reaching out to people genuinely and building your relationships. I don't think you can go wrong. It's a formula that works.
That's great advice. Could you please give advice to professionals who live it outside of Japan, like me?
So learn about Japanese culture. If you want to come on a board in Japan, please do that. Understanding Japanese business culture is so essential. Boards value collaborative, consensus-driven approaches. So if you're fairly independent-minded or not a team player, Like perhaps in America, people are taught to be very independent. Japan just is rooted, as you well know, I'm sure, Akiyo, that the deep respect for hierarchy and harmony. So there are excellent books, courses, cultural consultants you can get hold of, and be really, really familiar with this nemawashi I spoke about before, the consensus building, and ringi, that formal approval process. Getting to understand how decisions are made in Japan. It's different from the United States, using your example. Study the regulatory environment in Japan. So the way that corporate governance is done here is different to America. It's different to New Zealand and England. So study the Japanese corporate governance code, particularly if you're interested in listed companies. Get a really strong grasp on the different laws impacting organizations, shareholders' rights, fiduciary duties, those kinds of things. Understand that landscape in this regulatory world that Japan operates in and be prepared. Third, I'd say, is develop those cross-cultural communication skills. In a Japanese boardroom, it's not only about speaking Japanese, and that's been a really important thing for me, but showing that you're culturally aware, that you practice active listening, you show humility, you understand and respect formalities. Those can go a really long way to success. So if you're able to learn some Japanese, absolutely do that. But showing respect for the language and the culture is really important. And build yourself into the Japanese corporate community if you can. Consider joining chapters of Japanese business organizations, such as the Japan Business Federation, the Keidanren, or the Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Tokyo Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Those kinds of networks are really important to show up in some way. And highlight your international experience. That's welcomed on boards. But it's not the be-all and end-all to be overseas and I'm going to be a great international person and show you what you can do, Japan. Be really careful about that, how you present it. It's very important and sought after by Japanese boards, but it's the way you present it, right? The manner in which you present it's going to be important. And seek out, again, mentors, right, who are based in Japan, who've got Japan board experience. Connect with somebody who's got those skills that you can work with. Again, give before you get. What else are you going to give them so that they can then help you understand board dynamics, etiquette, any personal challenges you might have, or challenges that you can see on the board that could come up. So those would be the ways I'd say for someone sitting over in another country about coming into Japan. Just demonstrate your readiness by getting prepared. And probably preparation is one of the big themes of today's conversation with you.
Yeah, some Japanese companies are expanding their search for female board candidates internationally, and Japanese language skills are considered something nice to have and not a must. And you invited Ako Shimada last month. She lives in California, but she served aboard in Japan, and she travels to Japan multiple times of the year. But I was very surprised someone lives in California can serve on the board in Japan. So
Yeah,
thank you for
absolutely.
inviting her.
No, absolutely. She's another example of what's possible. And the whole point of my podcast and interviewing lawyers who are doing amazing and different things is to show another aspect, right? Another jewel in the box that I think you called it is she's a shining jewel of what is possible. She's worked for it and prepared, but she was ready to be ready when she was asked. And that's really obvious from the conversation we had on the podcast. Yeah, thank you for drawing attention to Ako.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes.
Let's do that.
And Catherine, you speak Japanese and you've lived in Japan for 20 years and you understand Japanese culture, Japanese language, Japanese business manner and etiquette. Do you know if Japanese is required now for a board role?
That's a really good question. The answer is it depends. Some companies are open to bringing in international talent or people in Japan that do not have Japanese language skills. They will hire a translator or an interpreter and provide that support. And I guess on one hand, that can be an additional burden for a company. But if they want that person, they will apply those resources. So it's not in every case that a company may hire in interpretation, but it's quite common, so that they can get somebody who's really great for the role that they want, and they support through Japanese language support. My honest personal view is that Japanese language and cultural understanding are pretty much essential if you want to be on big boards like the ones I'm on to be truly effective. Language isn't just about communication, it's about understanding nuances. And I'm not sure if interpreters gather all of those nuances together in the interpretation. Perhaps they do. I don't always listen to the interpretation because I work in Japanese language. So it's nuances, it's a reading between the lines, building rapport with your colleagues as well through the language. It can't be underestimated. So if a company provides translation, it's still just a little bit different to follow the conversations and discussions naturally. And I think recognizing subtle cues, people's faces, words they might use that have a different nuance in English, that's really important. And I think I often call it, I've been thinking about it recently, as a bicultural kind of board warrior, right? You don't only bring your expertise to the table, but you show your understanding of Japan's unique business environment. You've got the shield and the sword as the warrior that's ready, but you've also got the bandages there to heal the wounds when someone has been hurt by an outside conflict, for example, that might be happening amongst the board with things that they're dealing with. So for me, it's been a critical aspect and a secret weapon and a magic source of my success in Japan to have Japanese language. I realize not everybody can do that or hasn't had the 2 or 3 years I had studying it and then solidifying it in my first career as a tour guide using Japanese every single day. To your point, Japanese can be a nice to have, but I'd say it's a really critical advantage. So if you've got a chance to learn Japanese and to continue that journey and you're interested in Japanese language, I think it reflects that you are also interested in really genuinely being on a Japanese board. So I'll leave it there. I'm on the Japanese language the proponent for Japanese language, but I know there are people in Japan who are successful here, who've been appointed internationally, who don't need it and haven't used it. Maybe know a few aisatsu greetings, but that's about it.
Interesting. Thank you for your insights. Now I'd like to shift our conversation and ask you about your journey to establish your own law firm. So many female attorneys find that going to an in-house would be a good option for work-life balance because many law firms set certain billable goals which require long hours. But I think having your own law firm is another option for work-life balance and flexibility. If you build your own firm, you become your own boss. You have control over your workload. You can choose what you're going to do, or you can politely decline or refer to someone else that can do a good job for the needs. And I think it's an amazing option for attorneys seeking flexibility and prioritizing personal time. Actually, I established my own law firm earlier this year, and I work for AI Medical as general counsel as a contractor through my own firm. So far, I love the freedom, I love the flexibility, but I'm a bit nervous about the unknown. What if this contract ends and what kind of flow of other work? And so you establish your own law firms. I would really appreciate your guidance on how to navigate this having your own law firm journey.
Well, honestly, congratulations on
Thank
starting your own firm. Wow. You're taking this leap 20 years earlier than I did. You're already way ahead, right? So be kind to yourself, like be compassionate. It's perfectly normal to be nervous about the unknown. We all are. There's no manual. And then sometimes it's just exciting to go with the thrill of it. If we knew exactly what was coming, Akiyo, we maybe wouldn't even feel that rush or that impetus to do something like you've done. So think about that as a point, right? When it's your own business, it does feel like an exciting ride and it's incredible. And perhaps you're saying, what if? What if the contract ends and the flow of work stops? It won't. The contract might end, but something else will come up. You know, believe in yourself. And I think you will find the next step opens up for you because you're a good person and things will always happen. You're not going to be out on the street, not able to provide for your family. Things will happen because you'll build on each step. So to me, when did I start establishing or consider establishing my firm? I took the plunge after leaving my corporate role in that date of 2017 I mentioned earlier. I qualified during that year as a foreign registered lawyer in Japan. I got the approvals from the Japan Ministry of Justice and the New Zealand Law Society to establish a law firm here providing New Zealand law advice. I registered my law firm in January 2018 and officially started in April of that same year. April's a really great timing in Japan because it's start of financial year, school year, and of course the cherry blossom season. It's quite funny I mention that because when I was admitted to the bar in New Zealand in Christchurch, it was during spring in September, different month of the year. I was surrounded by cherry blossoms right then, and so it felt really symbolic as a new beginning to also launch my law firm in Japan during the cherry blossom season in April. There's something quite fitting about that renewal and fresh starts. And it felt like that was the appropriate time to do it in April 2018.
I love the cherry blossom season, and many foreigners or Japanese outside of Japan try to go there during the cherry blossom season, but it's really hard to predict. But I think the cherry blossom season is the season of graduation or entrance celebration. And so it's a wonderful time of the year to start something new. Running business sounds exciting, but it also means that you're fully responsible for everything. What are the pros and cons you have experienced as a business owner so far?
Yeah, definitely exciting. And it lands on you. You are responsible for everything. And, you know, first up, I'd say it's really critical to get those, you know, we say ducks lined up, the essential, critical, basic things. You need to find a tax accountant, someone to manage your books, get registered for tax and pay your tax, right? Those are essentials. And setting yourself up really well with your client interactions, having some good agreements in place, letters of engagement, standard terms of agreement. Those documents are really essential. I think also creating a very good website is especially exciting for me. It was to create that, my own website. Wow. It's the first impression. It's like a storefront, right? People looking in the window to see what you're like. Someone checks you out. It's really worth having a great web designer. Mine was actually based in Portland, in the States. And so, you know, don't cut corners on these things. Look for the people who can help you introduce someone great who could do your website. And branding's so important. You talked about it being your focus this year. I worked on my logo and my business cards. You know, they're still used in Japan, of course, business cards. So, you know, that whole point of getting everything ready, the critical basics is so important, and not leaving any gaps. For the cons, I'd say it's quite isolating. It's quite isolating because you're the boss, which means you carry the whole weight of you on your shoulders for the business success. So I would say to counteract that con, it's very important to find a network of friends and entrepreneurs who are doing similar things. If I'd known you when I was doing my business setup, I would have connected with someone like you, right? So where are the other people that Akiyo can connect with who are doing their own business as well as a law firm? For me, it was actually a Tokyo women's group. There was a mums group. I'm not a mum, but the mums group facilitator introduced me to that group. And from there, I found another group called a Lean In Circle of entrepreneurs doing their own business in Japan, women who were a couple of years ahead of me. So I could sort of see down the road 2 years ahead. They weren't miles ahead of me. So that was really important, to find people who are kind of just a bit ahead of you who can help you along the way. And then there's other things like admin. That's a real con, right? Trying to do all the billing and everything, but finding an executive assistant, a virtual assistant to do that for you is essential. And I think too about the work, you mentioned about work coming your way and what if something ends. There's a balance there between saying yes to work and turning away work and giving it to other people. So it's really tempting just to take anything that comes in the door. But I would say be quite selective, get a good feel for clients. Some clients feel a bit off, or potential clients, before you even hire them or they hire you. There's something about them. So trust your instinct if you feel a little bit like somebody's not quite who you want to work with. It's really important to do that and not have clients take you for a ride. So don't take everything and anyone. Be selective, because work will always come your way if you do it well. A word of mouth will get around and people will come to you. So the what if a contract ends, another one will come along. And what if the workflow stops? It won't, because other work will come in. So trust yourself.
Thank you. When you politely decline, or when you chat with your potential clients and you sense that this client might not be a good fit for you, but it might be a good fit for others, how would you handle that situation?
I think you're quite honest. You say, I'm not able to take on any extra work right now, but I've got a solution for you. Here are 2 other lawyers who could do this work for you really efficiently, and I know them and happy to introduce you. So you're not just saying a no to a client or potential client, you're giving the option. I think that's a simple, easy way to do it. You don't have to go into, you're not for me, you don't fit, I don't like you. You'd never say something like that. But giving an option of where they can go is certainly going to release you. And once they go off and find those other people, that's great. They might not be suitable for you, but if you know that they'd be suitable for another lawyer, then why not send them their way? And that lawyer will look after you later on with somebody else that's great for you.
I love the freedom of being able to say no, or just trying to be the best advisor. For example, if they're coming to me for certain things that I don't practice, and I can say that, and I can say, okay, let me introduce you to this lawyer who is really good at this. Some attorneys do that in private practice, but it's easier to say that now I'm on my own.
Yeah, totally, right? It's easy to just say, I don't do that kind of work, but I know someone who does. And by this time, or as you're going through this, you're probably picking up certain lawyers who are really great at different things. And you've seen testimonials that clients have written about them. You may have worked with them before and you know what they're like, so you can recommend. But giving yourself that flexibility of saying no is so easy when you are your own business owner. And that's one of the really glossy, glamorous, beautiful sides of being your own business owner.
Yeah, I agree. What advice would you give to the next generation of professionals, lawyers, accountants, consultants who are thinking about starting their own firm?
Well, I'm going to say, just do it. It's so rewarding. Yes, of course, there's some cons or negatives, but the positives far outweigh those challenges. There are a few things to keep in mind. Obviously, before you take the leap, you've got to have some savings in place. Starting a business always comes with uncertainties and things that you have to pay out for. So make sure that you're prepared for a rainy day and have that solid network in place. You will build it as you go through, but a circle of people who trust you and will send work your way is really important. Clients who believe in you and trust you. Running your own firm just opens up so many amazing pathways and lets you create new ones. Look at what I did. Board roles, a podcast, you're interviewing me and doing something that I never would have imagined was possible at all. But it leads to speaking opportunities and all kinds of things that you can create. And you can shift into a different version of yourself and become who you're really meant to be. So my advice would be, what's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work well, it's just a comma, not a full stop, right? You can go back to working in a law firm. You can go back to being in-house. There's no harm in trying, right? Why regret it if you never take the chance? Give it a go and see what happens. You could surprise yourself. I certainly am surprised at myself.
That's great advice. Now I'd like to ask you about your daily life and routine. You have fans all over Japan, all over the world. Many people would love to know what your typical day looks like. And if you could walk through your daily routine, we are very, very interested in listening to that.
Ooh, it may not be as exciting as you think, but I'm definitely happy to give you a peek at my routine. So I'm a morning person. I'm always up early, 6 o'clock is when the alarm goes off, and it goes off every day. Or I naturally wake up at 6 o'clock in the weekends as well. So I'm keeping that routine. It's always a coffee first after a glass of water. And I don't know if you know Wordle, but Wordle's part of my routine. It's a word game. So I play that online and I share the results with my family. So the very first thing in the morning is I'm connecting with my family back in New Zealand, sharing our who did what, wasn't a difficult word, and having a conversation. That's something that started over COVID. So connecting with my family early in the morning is great. Then I will take a quick walk, come back and get ready. And normally I'm at my desk around 8 o'clock in the morning to start the day, ready to dive in. Monday mornings, I'm often doing a podcast recording, and from there I have client work or overseeing some of the contractors who do my client work and managing the business. I'll also have within a week 3 to 4 board meetings or pre-meetings for board meetings. And so there's a lot of prep time that goes into that. For each board meeting, I'd say it's probably 2 to 3 hours preparation, preparing questions, understanding, asking questions of the secretariat, and, making comments that I want to ask in the meeting. I'm really active on social media, as you know, and so I'm always checking LinkedIn. I post there daily. The podcast episodes and comments on the episodes go out at regular times every week. They're scheduled. I don't prepare those on the day. They're scheduled in advance, which is a key to helping me get on with things, and coming in and checking comments and making sure I'm engaging with people and building a community. That's how I found you. I'm also on Chambers of Commerce and other professional groups, so I'm doing usually communications and updates with them. By midday, I've had 2 coffees. I've maybe had 3 today, speaking with you. I switch to water in the afternoon. Lunch is usually something I've prepared in the weekend. I prepare my week's meals in the lunchtime so that I'm not dashing off to the convenience store and getting something that's probably less healthy. If the weather's nice, I'll take a quick walk outside just to refresh. Afternoons are usually client meetings or catching up with my podcast guests. I give them a gift when they appear on the podcast, so I love to meet with them, see how they are, what's happened since the podcast launched, things that changed for them. I might be traveling for board meetings outside of Tokyo and other commitments or events in the evening. Usually a couple of nights a week, I'm out for a dinner or an event. I enjoy those a lot, but I also love coming home to relax in my cave or my cocoon and recharge. By 10 o'clock, it's lights out for me. PJs are on. If I feel a little bit tired from the day, I will take some magnesium to help me sleep better. It's naturally abundant in bananas, but I have a supplement that I take and get a really good rest. So it's a full day, but I focus on getting 8 hours sleep, drinking a lot of water, maybe about 2 liters a day. I'm not sure how much that is in American quarts or whatever it is, but 2 liters of water a day. And with my activities, it's really quite a nice balance of work, connecting, having fun, enjoying the podcast, and recharging in the evening. Anything surprising there for you?
I was surprised that you're a morning person because I see amazing pictures of all the events you go in the evening. So I thought you are a night owl.
Oh, no, morning person. So with events, I will appear at the very beginning and be early and get through speaking with some of the people and connecting who I wish to speak with. And I might filter away a bit later. So I try not to stay to the end. So yes, interesting that you thought that. That's good. And often we converse in the evening as well. But yeah, I'm a morning person through and through.
You always seem so motivated and full of energy. Do you have any tips of staying motivated and energetic?
Well, thanks for that. I appreciate that observation. I do try to bring energy to everything I do in my life and work. And honestly, I get tired as well, right? But for me, it's about cultivating a lifestyle that fuels me, and energy is so necessary. And I feel if anyone's listening and they're lacking energy, it's usually a signal that something's not going right in their life and probably needs some adjusting. Personally, I can't think of any other way to live a life than with vim and vigor, and it's probably just how I'm wired. One big part of staying motivated is centering myself in a space that feels really natural and energizing. So I believe that if I don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. So I have to do something, and I may as well do it with energy. So I love tackling projects, I like getting things done, and I like celebrating things that I've accomplished. And it could be tiny things. Someone asked me the other day, do you actually work, Catherine? Yes, he was a white male. And I naturally chuckled, as I do, responding with humor, and said, yeah, that's exactly why I can play hard, because I've already done the work. So another key aspect is I choose things that are a yes, 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 that are not things that don't light me up. They have to light me up. And I've really only recently learnt that that's the way that I'm wired, is to only say yes to things that are really going to be good for me. So I put my energy into those. And when I do that, it creates and doubles by XXX of the energy. So if I put energy into things that drain me, then I'm not going to be energized and motivated. So maybe that's a key for everybody listening, is that what are you putting your energy into that really doesn't deserve your time or your mental space or your physical contribution? And what could you pull out of to really put your energy into things that will drive you and motivate you? So ultimately, I think that motivation comes from things that resonate deeply with me. And my tip to people would be just go and find the things, find the people, the projects, the experiences that make you feel alive, and go let those be your fuel.
We hope you have enjoyed parts 1 and 2 of this 3-part series where Akiyo interviews Catherine. Part 3 is already available for you in your podcast player, so please keep listening.